I was 34 when my wife chose the worst possible moment to blow up our marriage. Right between the turkey and the stuffing, in front of 23 people who'd done nothing but love her. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon hung thick in my parents' dining room that Thursday afternoon. My mom had been cooking since dawn. My grandmother was halfway through one of her stories about making stuffing the old-fashioned way. And my dad was carving the bird with a kind of precision that comes from doing something the same way for 40 years. My brother sat next to his wife, both of them laughing at something my sister said while she passed around the green beans. It was warm. It was comfortable. It was home. My wife had been silent the entire drive over. One-word answers, tight jaw. I'd asked if she was okay 3 times and gotten nothing but a shrug. By the time we sat down, she hadn't touched her plate, just pushed mashed potatoes around in circles, while everyone else enjoyed the meal my mother had spent 2 days preparing. I should have known something was coming. The signs had been there for months, maybe longer. But I kept hoping she'd snap out of it, that she'd remember why we used to enjoy these gatherings, that she'd see my family the way I did. Imperfect, sure, but genuine. Then my grandmother started explaining her stuffing recipe to my sister-in-law, something about day-old bread and a pinch of sage at just the right moment. And that's when everything shattered. My wife stood up so fast, her chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. Every fork froze midair. Every conversation stopped. 23 pairs of eyes turned toward her. "I hate your family," she screamed, and the words seemed to echo off every wall in the house. "They're toxic and controlling, and I can't stand another minute of this fake happiness and these stupid traditions." My grandmother dropped her fork. My mother went pale. My brother's mouth fell open. The kids at the far end of the table started crying. "I want a divorce," she continued, pointing at me like I was on trial. "Right now. I'm done with all of you people." The silence that followed felt like it lasted an hour. I could hear someone's breathing, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, a car passing outside. My nephew whimpered, and my aunt pulled him close. I set down my fork, very carefully, and looked directly at her. My voice came out calmer than I expected. "Okay," I said. "Let's start the process immediately." She blinked. The confusion spread across her face like she'd just heard me speak a foreign language. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice suddenly uncertain. "Exactly what you asked for." I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found my attorney's number. Then I hit speaker and placed it in the center of the table where everyone could hear. The phone rang twice. "Miller Law Office. This is Mr. Miller." "Hi, this is your client," I said clearly, making sure my voice carried across the silent room. "I need to file for divorce tonight." There was a pause. "Oh, are you certain about this? It's Thanksgiving evening." "Completely certain. My wife just announced in front of my entire extended family that she hates them all and wants an immediate divorce. I'm simply honoring her request." My wife stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "That's not, I didn't mean, you're supposed to." "I can have papers ready by Monday morning," Mr. Miller said through the speaker. "We'll need to discuss asset division and—" "Perfect," I interrupted. "Send them to the house. I'll be available all weekend to review everything." The color drained from my wife's face. This wasn't going according to whatever script she'd imagined. "Actually," I continued, still looking at her, "given that she made this announcement publicly in front of 23 family members, including elderly grandparents and small children, I think we have a pretty clear case of irreconcilable differences." "Understood," Mr. Miller replied. "I'll prepare the initial documents tonight and have them ready for your signature Monday." I hung up and slipped the phone back into my pocket. The entire table remained frozen, but something had shifted in my family's eyes. Not shock anymore. Something closer to respect. "Well," I said, picking up my fork again. "Who wants seconds on turkey?" Looking back now, I realize I should have acted months ago. The warnings were there. Bright red flags I'd convinced myself were just pink concerns. It had started small, the way these things always do. Last Christmas, she'd complained that my mother's cooking was too heavy and made passive-aggressive comments about traditional gender roles. When my sister announced her engagement in March, my wife rolled her eyes and muttered something about another pointless wedding expense. But the real warning came during my dad's birthday dinner. She spent the entire evening on her phone, barely looking up. When my grandmother politely asked her to put it away during the toast, she snapped. "I'm an adult. I can use my phone whenever I want." After that, every family event became a minefield. She found fault with everything: the food, the conversations, the traditions we'd maintained for decades. She started making excuses not to attend, claiming work emergencies or sudden headaches that miraculously disappeared once we got home. "Your family is suffocating," she'd say during the car rides back. "They ask too many questions. Your mother treats you like you're still 12. I tried explaining that caring questions weren't invasive. That when someone asks how your job is going or if you need anything, that's love, not control. But she saw manipulation everywhere. 2 months ago, at my nephew's baptism, she sat in the corner complaining about meaningless religious ceremonies while everyone else celebrated. When my brother asked her to be in a family photo, she refused outright. "I'm not part of this circus," she said, loud enough for half the room to hear. I pulled her aside afterward. "These people have welcomed you for 5 years. The least you can do is show basic respect." She laughed bitterly. "Respect? They don't respect me. Your mother still asks when we're having kids like it's any of her business. Your dad gives unsolicited advice about everything. And your grandmother acts like some wise oracle when she's just an elderly woman with outdated opinions." That conversation should have ended our marriage right there. Instead, I tried harder. I started attending events alone, making excuses for her absence. "She's not feeling well," or "work deadline," or "previous commitment." My family was too polite to question it directly, but I caught the concerned looks between my parents. Last month, my mother finally addressed it during our weekly phone call. "Son, is everything all right at home? We barely see her anymore, and when we do, she seems unhappy." I gave her the standard deflection about stress and busy schedules, but she wasn't buying it. "We love you both," she said carefully. "But if someone consistently finds fault with people who care about them, that says more about their character than ours." She was right, of course. My family wasn't perfect, but they were genuine. They celebrated successes, supported each other through difficulties, and maintained connections across generations. What my wife called controlling, most people would call caring. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, she announced she didn't want to attend. "Your family is emotionally exhausting, and I need to protect my mental health." "Fine," I told her. "I'll go alone." "No," she said quickly. "That would make me look bad. I'll come, but don't expect me to pretend everything is wonderful." I should have recognized that as the threat it was. Instead, I hoped she'd find a way to get through one dinner without creating drama. Now, sitting at that Thanksgiving table after calling my attorney, I understood something clearly for the first time in years. Her explosion wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated. She'd been building toward this moment, collecting grievances, planning her dramatic exit. What she didn't expect was my response. She wanted a fight. She wanted me to beg, to choose between her and my family, to prove my devotion by defending her unreasonable behavior. She expected the script from every other argument we'd had, where I'd eventually compromise and apologize for things that weren't my fault. But something had shifted in me over those months of watching her treat people I loved with contempt. You can only enable bad behavior for so long before you become complicit in it. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes after I hung up the phone. My wife stood there frozen, clearly processing that her grand dramatic moment had completely backfired. Meanwhile, 23 pairs of eyes were watching this unfold like a slow-motion car accident. My father was the first to break the tension. He picked up the carving knife again and resumed slicing turkey. "Anthony, pass your plate down here. This bird isn't going to serve itself." That simple action seemed to wake everyone up. Conversations gradually resumed, though much quieter than before. My mother started refilling water glasses with shaky hands, and my grandmother continued her story about the stuffing recipe like nothing had happened. My wife finally sat back down, but she looked completely lost. This wasn't how her script was supposed to go. She kept glancing at me, then at the phone, then back at me, like she was waiting for me to suddenly panic and take it all back. "You can't be serious," she whispered, leaning toward me. "You just humiliated me in front of your entire family." I took a bite of mashed potatoes before responding. "I didn't humiliate you. You humiliated yourself. I just responded appropriately to your request." "That wasn't a request. I was upset." "You screamed that you hated my family and demanded an immediate divorce in front of grandparents, siblings, and children," I said calmly, cutting my turkey. "Those were your exact words. I'm simply honoring them." She looked around the table desperately, but nobody was coming to her rescue. My brother was deliberately focused on his plate. My sister was helping my aunt with the kids. My parents were maintaining polite conversation with my cousins. "But I didn't mean, you're supposed to fight for our marriage," she hissed. I set down my fork and looked at her directly. "Fight for what exactly? You just told everyone here that you hate the people I love most. You've spent months treating my family like they're beneath you. What am I supposed to fight for?" "We can go to counseling. We can work through this." "Work through what? Your contempt for my family? Your disrespect for people who've done nothing but welcome you?" I shook my head. "Some things can't be fixed with counseling." My grandmother suddenly spoke up from across the table. "Young lady," she said in that gentle but firm tone she'd perfected over 86 years. "In all my decades, I've never seen someone be so deliberately cruel at a family gathering. We've tried nothing but kindness with you." My wife's face flushed red. I don't need a lecture from someone who doesn't understand modern relationships. The entire table went silent again. "You don't disrespect Grandma Church. Not in this family. Not anywhere." My father slowly placed his napkin on the table. "I think," he said, in a voice I remembered from childhood when I was in serious trouble, "you should apologize to my mother. Right now." "I don't owe anyone here an apology," my wife shot back. "You people are impossible to please." That did it. My brother finally looked up from his plate. "Impossible to please? We've included you in every holiday, every birthday, every celebration for 5 years. We've listened to your complaints about our traditions, accommodated your dietary restrictions, and bent over backward to make you feel welcome. And this is how you repay that kindness?" "Anthony," my mother said quietly. But he wasn't finished. "No, Mom. Someone needs to say this." We've all walked on eggshells around her attitude for months. pretending we don't notice when she rolls her eyes or makes snide comments. We've watched our brother make excuses for behavior that would embarrass a teenager. My wife stood up again, but this time she looked panicked rather than angry. "You're all ganging up on me. This is exactly what I'm talking about." "Nobody's ganging up on you," I said, remaining seated. "You created this situation. You made the demands. I'm simply following through." "But the lawyer, the divorce papers, you can't just..." "I can, and I am." I reached for the cranberry sauce, keeping my tone conversational. "You want out of this family. You've made that crystal clear. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for." My aunt spoke up from the other end of the table. "Honey, maybe you should step outside and cool down. Think about what you really want here." For a moment, my wife looked like she might take that advice. She glanced toward the door, then back at me, clearly hoping I'd chase after her and beg her to reconsider. Instead, I turned to my nephew. "Hey, buddy, you want to help me get some more rolls from the kitchen?" That broke her completely. She realized that not only was I not going to follow her, but I was actively moving on with my evening, like her dramatic exit attempt was irrelevant. "Fine," she shouted. "Fine. If this is how you want to handle things, don't come crying to me when you realize what you've lost." She stormed toward the front door, but stopped when she realized she didn't have her purse or coat. The awkward pause as she had to come back through the dining room to get her things was almost painful to watch. "I'll be staying at my sister's," she announced to no one in particular. "Don't bother calling." "I won't," I replied, without looking up from my plate. After the front door slammed, the house settled into a different kind of quiet. Not the shocked silence from before, but something more peaceful. My mother started clearing empty plates. My father resumed carving turkey for seconds. Conversations gradually picked up again. My grandmother caught my eye from across the table and gave me the smallest nod of approval. That meant everything. "Anyone want to talk about dessert?" my mom asked, as if the last 30 minutes hadn't happened. "I made 3 different pies this year." Friday morning came with an unusual sense of peace. I woke up alone for the first time in years, without feeling anxious about what mood would greet me at breakfast. No walking on tiptoes. No wondering what innocent comment might trigger an argument. My phone had 17 missed calls and 12 text messages, all from her. The texts started apologetic. "I was overwhelmed yesterday. Can we talk?" Then moved to bargaining. "I didn't mean those things about your family. I was just stressed." By 3 in the morning, they'd shifted to accusations. "You're really going to throw away 5 years over one bad moment?" I deleted them all without responding and got dressed for my morning run. Something I hadn't done in months, because she always complained about me leaving early on weekends. Saturday morning brought a knock at the door. My wife's sister, Nadia, stood on the porch looking uncomfortable. "She sent me to talk to you," Nadia said without preamble. "She's staying at my place and crying constantly. Says you won't answer her calls." "There's nothing to discuss," I replied. She made her position clear on Thursday. "Come on, you know she didn't mean it. She was just having a bad day." I invited Nadia inside, but only because she'd always been decent to me. A bad day is forgetting to take out the trash or leaving dishes in the sink. What happened Thursday was deliberate cruelty toward people who've shown her nothing but kindness for 5 years. "She loves you," Nadia insisted. "She's just difficult sometimes." "Difficult is forgetting to take out the trash," I repeated. What she did was reveal her authentic feelings in a moment when she thought she had power over the situation. The only thing she regrets is that it backfired. Nadia left without accomplishing her mission. but not before admitting something telling. She's been complaining about your family to me for years. I always told her she was lucky to have in-laws who cared so much. Sunday brought my mother's weekly call earlier than usual. How are you holding up, son? Better than expected, honestly. I think I've been emotionally preparing for this longer than I realized. We all saw it coming, she admitted. We just hoped, we hoped love would be enough to change her perspective. Love requires mutual respect, Mom. She never respected any of you, which meant she never truly respected me either. Your father wants you to know that whatever you need, help with lawyers, a place to stay, anything, we're here. That afternoon, Mr. Miller called to confirm our Monday appointment. I've drafted the initial paperwork. Given the public nature of her announcement, and assuming she doesn't contest, we can probably have this wrapped up in 60 days. She's already trying to backtrack through intermediaries, I told him. That's common. People say things they regret in emotional moments. Are you reconsidering? Not for a second. Monday arrived with another visit, this time from my wife herself. She looked terrible. Red eyes, unwashed hair, wrinkled clothes. The woman who once spent 2 hours getting ready for a simple grocery store trip. Please, she said the moment I opened the door. Can we just talk? We've talked plenty over the years. I listened to you complain about every member of my family, watched you roll your eyes at traditions that matter to people I love, and made excuses for your behavior until I became complicit in it. I'll change. I'll be different. I'll apologize to everyone. You'll apologize because you got caught, not because you understand why your behavior was wrong. There's a difference. She tried a different approach. What about our history together? Our plans? The house we were looking at? The vacation we booked for Christmas? History doesn't justify tolerating disrespect. Plans change. The house was never a sure thing anyway, and I can cancel the vacation. Her face crumpled. I don't understand how you can just throw everything away. I'm not throwing anything away. You threw it away Thursday night when you chose to humiliate people I love in their own home during a family celebration. I'm just accepting your decision. But I love you. I paused at the door, considering whether to say what needed to be said. No, you don't. You love the idea of me. You love having someone to control, someone who will make excuses for your behavior and shield you from consequences. But you don't love me enough to treat my family with basic human decency. The papers were signed by Wednesday. She didn't contest anything, probably hoping that cooperation might change my mind. It didn't. By Friday, mutual friends started reaching out. We heard about you and your wife. Sorry things didn't work out. I found myself giving the same response. Sometimes people show you who they truly are. The smart thing is to believe them the first time. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, the divorce proceedings moved faster than expected. My wife had initially agreed to everything, probably thinking cooperation would demonstrate her commitment to changing. When she realized I wasn't softening my position, her strategy shifted dramatically. I want half of everything, she announced through her newly hired attorney. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, and spousal support for 3 years. Mr. Miller wasn't impressed. Given that your client publicly demanded a divorce in front of multiple witnesses, then abandoned the marital home voluntarily, we have strong grounds to contest these demands. Her lawyer pushed back. Emotional distress caused irrational behavior. My client was overwhelmed and spoke without thinking. Your client spent months displaying contempt for her husband's family before this incident. We have witnesses who can testify to a pattern of hostile behavior leading up to her public outburst. That's when things got interesting. My wife apparently thought she could salvage her reputation by claiming I had been emotionally distant and that my family had systematically excluded and belittled her. The problem with that narrative was evidence. Text messages between family members showed years of efforts to include her. Photos from events revealed her consistent lack of participation. Most damaging was her own social media, where she'd posted complaints about fake family gatherings and suffocating in-laws. My brother volunteered to provide a witness statement. She made it clear from day one that she thought she was better than us. We kept hoping she'd warm up, but instead, she got worse. Even Nadia ended up contradicting her story when pressed during a deposition. She complained about his family constantly, said they asked too many questions and had too many opinions. I told her multiple times that she was lucky to have in-laws who cared. The turning point came when her attorney discovered the 17 text messages she'd sent me after Thanksgiving. Reading them in sequence painted a clear picture. First apologetic, then manipulative. Finally angry when her usual tactics failed. Your client's own words undermine her claims of emotional distress, Mr. Miller pointed out. She went from demanding a divorce to trying to negotiate terms to threatening consequences when she didn't get her way. That's calculated behavior, not emotional breakdown. By early December, her demands had shrunk considerably. No spousal support, minimal claim on retirement accounts, and a rushed timeline to vacate the house she'd never contributed to financially anyway. But she wasn't finished trying to manipulate the situation. The week before Christmas, she showed up at my parents' house during our family's cookie baking tradition. My mother answered the door to find her standing there, with tears streaming down her face. "I know I messed up," she told my mother, "but I love him, and I love this family. Can't we find a way to fix this?" My mother, ever the diplomat, invited her in for coffee, not because she believed the performance, but because she wanted to give her one final chance to show authentic remorse. "I've been thinking about that night," my mother said carefully. "And I can't understand how someone who claims to love us could say such hurtful things in front of the children and grandparents." "I was overwhelmed," my wife repeated her standard excuse. "I felt like I didn't fit in, like you all had inside jokes and traditions that excluded me." "Honey, those traditions included you for 5 years. We explained every story, taught you every recipe, and invited you into every conversation. You chose to see exclusion where there was only love." My wife tried another approach. "Maybe I could talk to him, explain how I'm feeling now." "He's not here," my mother replied truthfully. "But even if he were, I'm not sure what you'd say that would change anything. You revealed your genuine feelings that night. We believe you." When my wife finally left, my mother called me immediately. She came by, tried the tears and apologies routine. "I wanted you to know in case she tries contacting you directly." How did she seem? Desperate but not sorry. There's a difference between regret and remorse. She regrets the consequences, but I don't think she understands why her behavior was wrong. She was right. 3 days later, my wife attempted one final manipulation. She sent a handwritten letter to every family member apologizing for her moment of weakness and asking for their help in healing our marriage. My grandmother's response was swift and final. She called my wife directly. "Young lady, I've lived long enough to recognize genuine remorse versus damage control. If you truly understood the hurt you caused, you wouldn't be asking us to convince our son to take you back. You'd be working on becoming the kind of person worthy of his love." "But I am working on myself," my wife protested. "No," Grandma Church replied firmly. "You're working on getting him back. Those are entirely different things. The divorce was finalized January 15th. My wife's final act was trying to contest the division of wedding gifts, claiming her family's contributions should stay with her. Mr. Miller shut that down quickly. Your client received everything from her family. She has no claim on gifts given specifically to both parties by his family, especially given the circumstances of the divorce. The day I signed the final papers, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete peace. No anxiety about walking into my own house. No wondering what mood would greet me. No careful word choices to avoid triggering an argument. That evening, my mother called with the family's traditional invitation to Sunday dinner. But this time, her tone was different. Lighter. "We're making your grandmother's pot roast recipe," she said. "And we'd love to have you join us. No drama, no tension, just family." For the first time in months, I accepted without hesitation. 6 months after that Thanksgiving dinner, I ran into my ex-wife at the grocery store. She was alone, looking tired and significantly thinner than I remembered. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. "Hi," she said quietly, blocking my path with her cart. "How have you been?" "Good," I replied honestly. "Better than I've been in years, actually." She flinched at that. "I've been thinking about what happened, about us. I know I made mistakes." "You made choices," I corrected. "There's a difference." "I've been going to therapy," she said, as if that somehow changed everything. "Working on my anger issues and communication problems." "That's good for you. Personal growth is always worthwhile." She studied my face, probably looking for signs that I cared about her progress. When she found none, her expression hardened slightly. "You know, your family isn't perfect either. They can be judgmental and overwhelming." And there it was. 6 months of therapy, and she still couldn't take full responsibility without deflecting blame. Some people never change because they never truly want to. "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "They're not perfect. They're human beings with flaws and opinions and strong feelings about the people they love. But they're good people who treat others with kindness and respect." I treated them with respect. I almost laughed. "You told my 86-year-old grandmother that she had outdated opinions and didn't understand modern relationships. You refused to participate in family photos. You spent 5 years complaining about people who did nothing but try to include you." I was struggling to fit in. "No, you were struggling to accept that the world didn't revolve around you." Her face flushed with familiar anger. "You're never going to forgive me, are you?" "Forgiveness isn't the issue. Understanding is. You still don't understand what you did wrong, so you'd inevitably do it again." I pushed my cart past her, but she called after me. "You'll regret this. You'll realize what you gave up." I turned back one final time. I gave up walking on eggshells in my own life. I gave up making excuses for inexcusable behavior. I gave up sacrificing my family's peace for your ego. Trust me, I don't regret any of it. That encounter confirmed what I'd suspected all along. She hadn't changed because she couldn't see past her own perspective long enough to recognize the damage she'd caused. Last month, my family celebrated my nephew's first birthday. The house was full of the usual chaos. Kids running around, multiple conversations happening simultaneously. My grandmother teaching someone a new card game. My mother coordinating food like a military operation. As I watched my sister help my nephew blow out his single candle while everyone cheered, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Not just for my family, but for my decision to protect what mattered most. My brother sat down beside me. "Remember when you used to stress about bringing her to these things?" "Every single time," I admitted, wondering what she'd find to criticize, how long before she'd want to leave, whether she'd say something that would hurt someone's feelings. And now? I looked around the room at faces that had supported me through everything. People who'd never asked me to choose between love and loyalty because they understood the two weren't mutually exclusive. Now I remember why family gatherings are supposed to be enjoyable. My phone buzzed with a text from a college friend I'd reconnected with recently. "Still coming to dinner Friday? Sarah's making that pasta dish you liked." Sarah was a teacher who'd been divorced for 3 years. We'd started as friends, but something genuine was developing between us. The difference was night and day. She loved hearing stories about my family, asked thoughtful questions about my nephew's development, and had already volunteered to help with my grandmother's 90th birthday party next month. "Wouldn't miss it," I texted back. After the birthday party, my parents and I stayed behind to help clean up. As we packed away decorations and wrapped leftover cake, my father brought up something I'd been wondering about. "Have you heard anything about her lately?" "Ran into her a few months ago. Still playing victim, still blaming everyone else for her problems." "Some people never learn," my mother added, scraping plates. "You tried perfectly," I assured them. "You welcomed her, included her, and treated her like family for 5 years. Her inability to appreciate that says everything about her character and nothing about yours." My grandmother, who was folding napkins with the precision of someone who'd hosted thousands of family meals, looked up with a knowing smile. "You know what the beautiful thing is about all this?" she asked. "What's that, Grandma?" "You chose us. When it came down to it, you chose family over dysfunction, love over drama, peace over chaos. That takes courage." It didn't feel courageous at the time. It felt necessary. The best decisions usually do. Driving home that evening, I reflected on how much had changed since last Thanksgiving. The anxiety was gone. The constant tension had disappeared. And Sunday dinners had become something I looked forward to rather than endured. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. It was my attorney calling about finalizing the sale of the house my ex-wife and I had been considering. The buyers had accepted our counteroffer. "Congratulations," he said. "You'll have the closing funds in your account by Friday." I thanked him and hung up, then sat in my car for a moment, taking inventory of my life. A job I enjoyed, a family that supported me, new relationships built on mutual respect, and complete freedom from the exhausting cycle of drama and manipulation that had defined my marriage. As I walked toward my front door, I thought about something my grandmother had said years ago. "The people who truly love you will never make you choose between them and your happiness." My ex-wife had spent 5 years making me choose. My family never had. I unlocked my door and stepped into a home that felt peaceful again, where I could be myself without consequence, where love didn't come with conditions or ultimatums. Some decisions change everything. That Thanksgiving dinner had been one of them, and I'd never been more grateful for a moment of absolute clarity. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.